Welcome to Wannabe Clutter Free, formerly Wannabe Minimalist, the podcast for busy families who are tired of the chaos, fed up with being overwhelmed, and ready to enjoy life again. Each week, we talk about how to let go of the clutter so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. And it's not just physical clutter, we talk about the mental and emotional stuff too, because if it's holding you back, it's time to ditch it. I share what I've done in my own life to declutter, organize, and calm the chaos, but you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's practical, doable, and simple for those of us that want to be clutter-free. Peppermint lattes, cozy nights by the fire, and seasonal dry air that brings sniffles and dry, cracked skin. Well, two of these things I love, and the other, well, for that, I turn to a name that's been trusted for over a century: Vicks. Their humidifiers aren't just simple solutions, they're proven to combat those tough winter ailments effectively. With indoor humidity levels dropping below 40% in the winter, issues like stuffy noses, dry, itchy skin, and chapped lips become all too common. Vicks humidifiers help maintain indoor humidity at an ideal 40 to 60%, providing relief from these discomforts. In our home, I've set up Vicks humidifiers in every bedroom. Adding Vicks VapoPads and VapoSteam into the mix transforms each room into a sanctuary of comfort. The familiar scent of Vicks Vapo takes me back to those childhood days when this was my mom's go-to for cold relief. It's a sensory experience that spells relief and care. If you're ready to transform your winter experience and bring soothing comfort into your home, there's a special offer on Amazon for the Vicks Cool Relief Humidifier where you can get 20% off your purchase. Just go to Amazon.com and search Vicks VUL 600 Cool Relief Humidifier. It has a blue tank with white in the center. Just be sure to click on that coupon to get the discount. You need this for wintertime comfort. Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. I'm Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 231 of the Wannabe Clutter Free podcast. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Amy Green Smith about learning to empower our voice, show up in our own lives, and get more comfortable with saying no. It's a great episode, and it gets pretty real. I think you're going to love it. But before we get into our conversation, I just want to say thank you so much to you for joining me today. I am so grateful you are here, and if you like what you hear today, there are a few things that you can actually do to help the show. Number one, you can share it with a friend. Number two, you can leave a rating and a review for the show. Number three, you can comment and share the show on social media. Or number four, the easiest of all, you can simply subscribe. All of those really help me out, and they won't take you too long to do today. But that's enough housekeeping. Let's learn more about my guest this week. Amy Green Smith is a certified and credentialed life coach and hypnotherapist, masterful speaker, and personal empowerment expert. Amy uses her roles as coach, writer, podcaster, and speaker to move individuals to a place of radical personal empowerment and self-worth. With an acute focus on helping people find their voice, she is highly sought after for her uncommon style of irreverence, wisdom, and humor, and has been a featured expert in Inspired Coach Magazine and on Fox 5 San Diego. Give this episode a listen, and when you're done, head over to wannabeclutterfree.com/231 to get the show notes for today's episode with links to Amy's website and her resources. Again, you can find it all at wannabeclutterfree.com/231. And now let's get to our conversation. Well, hey, Amy, welcome to the Wannabe Clutter Free podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing so well, and I am excited to chat with you.
I am excited you're here. Before I hit record, we've been having some technical difficulties, and I feel like today's conversation is going to be so good for me. We are talking about people pleasing, and we were talking about showing up as your full authentic self and the power of saying no, and so many great things.
Yeah.
But before we get there, can you tell our listeners about you and what you do?
Sure. So I am a women's leadership coach and hypnotherapist, and I work primarily in the realm of enoughness and powerful communication. So it is twofold. It's this internal element of genuinely believing in your own enoughness, your own value, your own worth, which for many of us is like taking an act of God to believe that. And then the external piece is, okay, if I do believe that I am enough, if I do believe that I am worthy, how does that then inform how I communicate in my life, in with my family, with my children, and with my coworkers? So what does it look like to establish boundaries? What's the anatomy of a difficult conversation? How does one say no? And how do we do that without being racked with guilt and having like speaking up remorse. So those two pieces, the enoughness and then the confidence and communication, are what I do in my corner of the internet.
Oh, gosh, I love that. Like I said, this is going to be a really good conversation because I'm feeling like a hot mess today. But I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm doing the best I can. And we all have our days, right? We all
Yeah.
have these moments. And I feel it's very important to show up as your authentic self. I feel like it's very important to show other people that life is not always perfect.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I do want to you talk a lot about this personal empowerment
Mhm.
and this idea of finding your voice.
Yeah.
So, what does that really mean to you? And why do you find that to be such an essential part of self worth?
Well, I don't think we can really talk about speaking up for oneself or advocating for your own needs without talking about what typically gets in our way, which I see as very antithetical to powerful communication. And that is being so invested in the opinions of other people, AKA people pleasing, that we shape shift and we deny the things that matter to us because we're so concerned about how we might be perceived or received. And so sometimes this shows up with people pleasing behavior. Sometimes it shows up with perfectionism. And I'm sure many people who are in like the decluttering space, it's like, oh, well, that's not perfectly P touched and I need different organizational boxes, right? And yeah, you're laughing because you're guilty.
Yep.
I think we can't ignore that it's not just about a skill set of learning how to speak up, but rather a skill set of learning how to let go of that behavioral tactic of taking care of everybody else. And I think it's an important concept to look at because most of the time when we look at people pleasing, we think of it as, oh, those are people who are maybe having a little bit more of a repressed posture. They're really quiet, definitely introverted. They're shy. They're the wallflower. And that could not be more inaccurate. I view people pleasing as any time you sacrifice your wants, needs, and opinions in order to take care of someone else's wants, needs, and opinions. So the key discernment there is that there's a self sacrifice. For example, growing up, I was a part of a lot of religious trauma. I'll just say it as spell it out that way. So there were a lot of times that my mom now in my adult life would say things that I absolutely did not agree with. And just being quiet is one way to get through those sorts of situations, but I feel very strongly about not allowing my silence to make me a liar. So if I'm not speaking up, then I'm probably being complicit with whatever that perspective is. So if I don't agree with her and I allow her to think that I do, that's on me. But one of the other pieces around people pleasing, and I'm curious if you have any of this in your history, is most of the time we develop that tactic in order to stay safe. In fact, it's analogous to our fear responses. So if you've ever heard the fight, flight, freeze, well, there's this new one sort of in the psychological conversation called fawning, which is if we were about to be attacked by, let's say, a mountain lion, to fawn in the face of that aggressor would be to go, "Here, kitty, here's some meat. Go over there, go get some meat." You're placating, you're acquiescing to that aggression as opposed to fighting, fleeing, or freezing. So if you think about growing up, let's say with volatile caregivers where things were really difficult, or maybe you had a sibling who had a lot of special needs. So you realize that if you just faded into the background or you made sure that mom and dad were okay, or you just stepped aside, nothing to see here, walking on eggshells, that's a way for you to stay safe as a child. And so we use those same tactics as we get older, right? Of, oh, okay, well, if I make sure everybody in my workplace loves me, or if I make sure all my in laws are okay with me, then I'll be okay. Even if you consciously know you're not actually in danger from them. So we have to look at that. And I think many women listening or anybody who's femme presenting or was socialized as a woman, we know what that's like to people please a man or to acquiesce or placate a man so that we don't get murdered or so that our drink doesn't get roofied or something. So we
Yeah.
can't necessarily say that people pleasing is always bad. But the discerning question is, am I actually in danger? Because
Mm.
most of the time, we're not actually in danger. We're actually outsourcing our self worth. And you asked me about the correlation with self-worth. So the idea of speaking up is not that it's this arbitrary personal development exercise to make your life harder. It's because every single time you silence yourself, every single time you choose not to speak up, you are embedding a subconscious message in your own mind that everyone else matters more than you. And if you are doing that over and over again, no wonder your self-worth is taking a hit. No wonder it's difficult to start your new side hustle or to put your name in for a promotion or to have that difficult conversation with your in-laws. No wonder that's difficult because you've conditioned this belief that everyone else matters more than me. That is essentially your self-worth.
Gosh. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Fawning sounds like a new one that, yeah, really did. I see a lot of that. I do see a lot of that and gives you a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely grew up a people pleaser, 100%. I'm a nurturer. I definitely don't like to rock the boat. And I always felt like a lot of that was because I'm willing to rock the boat if I know what I stand for, right?
Mhm.
If I know what my stake in the ground is, then I am willing to stand behind it and rock that boat. But if I don't, if I feel like I'm a little wishy washy, then I don't want to cause the chaos if I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's the chaos I want to cause. Does that make sense?
Totally. And this is a huge piece of women just taking up space, right?
Mm.
Because we think this is the whole situation of how women, if there's a criteria of 10 items, if women don't meet those ten items, they won't apply for that
Yeah,
job, let's say. If men meet 4 of them, they're like, "Sure, it, let's go, let's apply for that job."
let's do it.
But also, we can't discount that in our culture, and I'm talking primarily the US, but I know a lot of Western areas are very similar, that we tell women you have to be flawless in order to play in the man's world, right? We
Mm.
raise little girls with tools and toys that are caregiving. I grew up in the '80s, I'm a Gen Xer, and I grew up with stuff learning how to cook and take care of babies or be beautiful like Barbie. I didn't get the NASA set.
Mm.
I didn't get to build. So, we can't ignore that there's a lot of social influence telling women, "Don't take up space." We tell them, "Don't take up space with your body. You can't be too big. We need you to be tiny. We need you to literally shrink." In order to be valuable. You can't be too rich. Don't gloat about wealth. Don't acknowledge your affluence. Don't enjoy food. You're not a like, you can't have pleasure. There's so many things that we are conditioned with women, but another major piece is don't take up space with your indifference, like, just the fact that you're not 100% able to put a stake in the ground, that does not then equal you don't deserve a voice. You get to
Mm.
doesn't matter if you're all in or you're wishy-washy or you're not sure. All of that deserves a platform. And I wanna mention something about when you said "rock the boat." We
Mm.
have a ton of idioms. "Don't rock the boat," "Don't open up a can of worms," "Sweep it under the rug." We have a lot of idioms, a lot of social ways to say, "Stay quiet." Because I think a
Mm.
majority of us don't really want to rock the boat. We don't like a lot of confrontation. So Of course, I'm not saying you have to like confrontation, but you have to like yourself enough to take up some goddamn space. So, what that might look like, let's say somebody is bringing up a topic that you're not totally sure about. It is enough to just say, you know what? I'm not sure. I totally agree, but we certainly don't need to get into that right now. Or I don't know if I fully share that opinion, but I don't think this is the time to discuss it. Just
Mm,
because you're vocal doesn't mean you have to give a TED talk about your stance. You know what I mean? So what are
totally.
you thinking about that as I'm saying, "Hey, there's some easy ways to get out of that."
Yeah, no, I think that's super helpful. And to think about it from a perspective of, yeah, you don't have to, the taking up space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one resonates a lot. In fact, I remember using those words. Has it been about a year ago? I don't know. I've always been more of I've never been like a center stage.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to be center stage. I always grew up wanting to be an side, what's the side part? What's the word I'm even looking for? I don't know. I don't even, can't even think. And supporting role. That's the
Okay.
word.
Got it.
The supporting character, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to be the supporting character in my own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well
So I
mm,
want to figure out what is the space I want to take up.
yeah.
And yeah, definitely the what hits is the yeah, making sure everybody else is comfortable, making sure everybody else is happy, and learning as I'm growing that I cannot be in charge of everyone else's happiness. I
Mm-mm.
cannot make other people happy.
Yeah.
People have to choose their own happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how would you know that? Because most of us growing up, and again, this is disproportionate to women, we're taught you can't say that to him. You can never say that to her. You're going to hurt her feelings. You're going to no, that's impossible, right? And so we're told really early on that we're responsible for how other people feel. And little boys don't get that nearly as much as we do. And the
Hmm.
whole concept of like girls mature faster than boys. And I'm like, no, we demand more of girls. We demand more and we let
Interesting.
boys be whatever. That's fine. And I know you're committed to a different situation, which I applaud you.
Yeah.
But the supporting character thing, I think this is a really important thing to bring up because I don't want to propagate the idea that in order to be someone who is emboldened and assertive and speaking up for themselves, they now have to become this main character energy. They have to be gregarious, outspoken,
Yeah.
extroverted. No, not at all.
Okay.
So this is about just having value in who you are, full stop. So for many folks that I work with, they are in some kind of helping profession. They're in the medical field or they're in some sort of situation where they actually they have a strong value around impact, philanthropy, caretaking, something where it's at odds with how do I also
Hmm.
place value around myself? So I'm not asking you to stop valuing impact or taking care of others or being in a helping profession. I'm asking you to value yourself just as much. And if push came to shove and you had to choose, that you would choose you. So
Hmm.
that's the difference. I'm not asking you to stop wanting to caretake for our fellow humans. We always want to stay in that place. I just want you to value yourself as much as you do other people.
Hmm. I like that. That's a good distinction. That's a really great distinction. And it's interesting because as you say this, like I feel like I have done that in lots of areas of my life, right? But just as humans are humans, not everyone is perfect. And so there are areas in my life where I definitely need to work, but I need to look back on the areas where I have done that or where I do feel confident and think, okay, how could I bring those principles, those ideas, those thoughts then into maybe the areas where I feel a little less assertive or a little unsure
Yeah.
or more where I fawn to placate other people and make them feel more content
Yeah.
where I'm not rocking the boat. So
Right.
where I'm staying quiet as I'm using air quotes over here. Yeah, definitely. Interesting.
Well, if you
And
think
I think a lot of the people listening to this episode are moms, right? And this is where a lot of it has come to head for me. because knowing that I am responsible in raising a human and a lot of what I do is going to impact how she sees herself, how she shows up in the world, who she is, and feeling, okay, I did some good things. She loves to build and create and things like that. But I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Like, I'm raising a human, and
Yeah.
I feel like I need to show up as a better version of myself. And she holds the mirror up to me all the time. Like,
Mhm.
she is a lot of me, which is a good mix of both of us, thank goodness. But she is a lot of me and holds that mirror up to me to where I'm like, I
Yeah.
got some work to do. So, how can we start to show up as the person we want for our children, knowing this is a long journey? This is a huge thing. And we're not going to be able to just flip the light switch and become a different person overnight.
Yeah.
But where do we start to show ourselves the compassion, to show up as the person we want, to find our voice?
Mhm.
What's a good starting point for us if we're struggling?
Well, I think one of the best tools that you can work with for both yourself through your children is working with emotional intelligence, because so much of this is around how we feel. And when we think about even the act of people pleasing, many of us grew up in households where the only thing you were really allowed to feel was happy. And if you weren't, it was like, well, I don't want to see that, get in your room. And so we weren't taught that expressing our emotions or how we felt was acceptable. And we learn, and again, this is a gross umbrella statement about all of us, but I can say very pretty confidently that many Gen X, elder millennial grew up with parents who weren't necessarily teaching them the breadth of their emotional capacity. So where this comes in is when she has various feelings about things. When you actually give that power, you start to give yourself power around those things too. Like, I'm allowed to not like to cook. I'm allowed to like my job as much as I like the job of parenting. I'm allowed to have the freedom to feel all of these various emotions. And I think if you start giving your children those freedoms and teaching them how to work with their own emotions, you start to embolden yourself as well. And you can think about it. What would I have wanted to hear from my mom when I felt this way? Or what would I have wanted to hear, from any sort of influence? And I had the utopian situation with my father where he showed me very early on that it was okay to be with the various forms of emotion. And so he would make a game out of it, and he would say, "Okay, show me happy." And I'd go, "Ah," and make a happy face. "Show me scared." I'm like, and so I learned very quickly that being demonstrative, showing emotion was actually okay, and I wasn't made wrong for that. So I think that's one way that we can start working with children in that way. And it's also a great avenue for you to have connection with them and to understand what exactly is going on. And the major lesson, I think, is you are always allowed to feel how you feel, even if people tell you you're not supposed to feel that way. And you are always responsible for your choice of behavior. So, for example, if I'm mad at somebody, I'm allowed to be mad, but I can't go hit them. As an adult, I can't burn that person's house down, but I am allowed to be mad. And then giving them the resources to work through that. Okay, if you have a lot of anger, okay, this is what we do. You can beat up this pillow or this bed, or you can rip up all this newspaper, or you can scribble really furiously, or you can go in the bathroom and do a silent scream as loud as you can. So, but giving them the tools to help them work through the emotion, because most of the time when we bump up against something uncomfortable, someone doesn't like something that we said, or they don't like our outfit, or whatever it is that they might be contending with as kids, they want to take their toy, we think, I've got to do something to get them to like me. I got to get this to smooth over some way. I must be wrong if they're mad at me. There must be something wrong with me. Think about how we feel as adults. If we're not accepted, if somebody doesn't want to buy something from our business or whatever it is, we go, what's wrong with me? It's the same. that our kids are going through. So giving them the vernacular, the education around the stuff that you would have needed when you were that age, I think can be helpful.
Oh, love that. I'm allowed to.
Yeah,
That is huge. Yeah, just even using those words, like just saying that, like, I'm allowed to. What are the things that you want to do in life? And then tell yourself, I am allowed to,
yes.
and say it out loud. Yeah, I love that.
And I think we need to push the boundary on that aloud. So, for example, I
Hmm.
had a client who was pregnant with her 4th child, and she needed permission to be pissed. She did not want that 4th baby. She was obviously gonna take she was going to have it, she was going through with it, but she was angry. And I'm like, "You're allowed. You are allowed." So it's the stuff that we think we're not supposed to feel. That doesn't mean that's going to inform your decision, but you're allowed to not want to parent that day. Right? Like with my clients, I'm like, "You're allowed to not wanna do that assignment." Like, we're allowed to feel how we feel, and we're always responsible for what we choose to do with that emotion.
Yeah. So, right. You're allowed to not want to parent that day. That doesn't mean you don't get to not
That's right.
parent that
That's exactly
day.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that distinction of you are allowed to feel however you feel, but the way you've set up your life, you need to then handle the responsibilities that you have and treat people in a way that
That's
humans
right.
need to be deserve to be treated. Just inherently because they're humans.
Exactly. But if we're not, like, this just as well as I do. If you haven't had an outlet for your anger or your frustration or your feelings,
Yeah,
how much easier is it to be snappy with your partner, to be snappy at your kids, to
totally.
be more irritable? What would it be like if you taught everybody in the family emotional intelligence? So they said, "Mom, I think you might need to go do a silent scream because they can see that you're upset." So you go run into the bathroom and you do a silent scream, or maybe you beat up your bed a little bit. And then you come out and you're more capable of actually showing up in a way that you want to. That's
Mm,
emotional regulation. That's having an acuity around what is happening for us emotionally, because we know that as much as we're told, "Oh, well, you're too sensitive," or whatever, every single decision that we make as humans, by and large, is based off of emotion, how we think something is gonna make us feel. The whole reason we declutter is because we're attempting to
yep.
feel different, more peaceful, more at home. We don't do it just to check off the box. It's because we wanna feel something.
Yeah. I always say nobody actually enjoys the decluttering part because you come up against a lot of these emotions of guilt or just anger, frustration, overwhelm. So nobody actually really enjoys the part of going through their stuff. If you had all the space in the world, you would never declutter. But we do, like you said, you declutter because you want the capacity to show up as the person you want to be. You want to have the peaceful, calm home. You want to be able to invite people over
Yeah.
and enjoy that. And yeah, so absolutely. I love how you said that. Absolutely true. Let's talk about saying no, because this one is huge for any woman I have ever talked to. There are very few women that are comfortable with saying no, at least the ones I know in my life. So, how do we start to feel comfortable
Hmm.
with this idea? Do you have some tips around that?
Absolutely. So, the main thing that we want to do is we want to disrupt that gut response that says, "Absolutely, sure, yes, I'll do it." Like, the minute you're asked, because that is what's been wired in the brain, your gut response is gonna be yes. So, we have to have some sort of pattern interrupt. So, I suggest having some sort of phrase that you use that helps you buy some time. And any sort of phrase that you're gonna use that you're gonna start saying differently than what you've always said in the past. I grew up in Southern California, and I had a friend who would call it being the totally girl. So anytime someone would say, "Hey, can you do this?" "Oh, totally, I'll do that." And it's the yes man version. And so that we need to disrupt that in some way. So phrases that you can use, something like turning a question back to them. "How soon do you need to know?" That way you can start thinking about, is this something that I could actually take on? Do I have the mental real estate to add to this? Or to add this to my plate. You can also say, you know what, I really want to give that some thought before I answer because the last thing I would want to do is commit and then have to change, have to leave you high and dry. Don't want to do that. So I need to give it some thought. So some sort of phrase. I need to give that some thought. I need to give it some thought. How soon do you know? And if they say something like, well, I really need to know now, then I would say, "You know what? I so appreciate you asking, but I'm going to say no just because I do not want to add one more thing and then have to pull out. But please ask me again if you mean that. Don't say ask me again if you don't mean that." Which, by the way, I would think that a majority of us, the people that we're trying to attract into our lives, are authentic, transparent individuals. We don't want to attract a bunch of people pleasers. We don't want to attract a bunch of people who are blowing smoke up our ass and not really telling us how they feel about things. So we have to be the person that we want to attract. So if you really don't want to say yes, do you want somebody else in your life who is fearful of telling you no? Probably not. We need to embody that. And what we have to recognize is that saying no is not malice. That's not ill intent. That's not I hope you eat a bag of like, it's not being mean. We have to recognize that saying no is not a malicious act. So depending on who is asking, so let's say it's somebody who you really wish you could come through for them. You wish you could help them move or let them borrow whatever it is that you have. So you might say something like, working with vulnerability, the skill of vulnerability, because you feel safe with that individual. Something like, you know what? I will be really honest with you. I feel if I add one more thing, I am going to have a nervous breakdown. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I cannot add one more thing. And I genuinely wish I could say yes. Right. So if it's somebody like that who you can be vulnerable with and that's safe, you can say something like that. To be really honest with you, I'm at my breaking point. Yeah. And I think just being really forthright around give me a little bit of time to let me look at this. Let me look at my schedule. Let me think about that. How soon do you need to know? And if you are in a big pinch, like you're in the workplace or something where you feel on the spot, ask for a bathroom break. Say, can you hold that thought really quick? I need to run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. Hold that thought. So that way, when you're in the can, you can start thinking about, okay, how can I phrase this? How can I say this? And you can give yourself a little pep talk script so that you can go back and say, okay, tell me again, ask me again. And then you can say, you know what, I would love to come through, but I just don't think it's going to work right now. I'm going to politely decline, but thank you so much for thinking of me. So there's lots of workarounds depending on the situation, but the best overarching piece of advice is just buy yourself some time. Just buy yourself some time.
Oh, that's so great. Yes, and I hear you on the totally. Totally. Yeah, of course. Totally. As a Southern California girl myself, but I love what you said. That last part made me chuckle for sure. Like, just, I've got to go to the bathroom. Like, just give yourself space and the moment to really clarify in your own brain if this is something that you want. I think we've all
Yeah.
heard the phrase, if it's not a heck yes, it's a no.
Yeah.
And that gives you the moment to even evaluate whether it's something you want to do or have the capacity to do, because it's really hard to be put on the spot, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Well, and you can also say that. You can go, "Oh, wow. I was not expecting that," or, "Oh, wow, I feel put on the spot a little bit." You can say that. You can do that with things that are offensive. "Oh, I was not expecting you to say that. I don't share that opinion," right? Like, wow, just can be a
Yeah.
helpful, like, bridge phrase to help you get through there. But one thing you can ask yourself while you are mulling that over is, "If I say yes to this, what am I also saying no to?" Because if I'm saying
Yes.
yes to helping this person, I'm probably saying no to working out or having more time for my business or exercising, or I said that one, or hanging out with my kids, decluttering, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
probably saying no to something else. And does that trade make sense for my priorities, my vision, what I care about the most in the world, or is this 100% an obligation? And sometimes it's a medley, right? And we have to go, yeah, if I really did have all the time in the world, I would love to go do that, but I have to choose. And it's either spending time with my kids or just relaxing, having some white space. Again, this is taking up some damn space with our recreation, our rest. There's a reason why there's epic amounts of burnout and adrenal fatigue and all sorts of autoimmune issues affecting women because we're taking on too goddamn much. So sometimes you being busy might just be you sleeping or washing your hair or zoning out on a Netflix series. And that is important. It's important. We've got to make that mandatory. That's a valid reason to decline an invite to some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that sounds fantastic. I was thinking as you were saying that there, like, why are we so burnt out these days? What do you think? I think a lot of it has to do with social media and our comparison and always being on and feeling like we have to be everything to everyone. But I would be curious to hear what you think.
Well, I can get on my feminist soapbox on this one. One of the pieces is basically we're having nervous system failure because we are trying to put out so many fires all the time. So there's a great book by Emily and Amelia Nagoski called Burnout, if anyone is interested. And it talks a lot about our stress cycles. And for our primitive humans, we would have stress cycles where we were about to be attacked by a neighboring tribe or we were about to be attacked by some wildlife. So our sympathetic nervous system would kick in. That's your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, would kick in, keep you safe. It also sends the adrenals into overdrive. You get that adrenaline rush. You get through that precarious situation, and then the body is supposed to go into your parasympathetic, sometimes called tend and befriend or rest and digest. And that's when rest, long periods of rest, and then have these spikes of accessing the sympathetic nervous system. So, what that looks like now for modern day humans is not that we're about to die around every corner, but that we perceive a threat around every corner. It's if I'm late to pick up my kids, there's a threat. It's if I don't get the food ready to go in time, there's a threat. It's we are moving in a sympathetic nervous system at such consistent, prolonged rates, and our bodies are not designed to stay in that place. So, they will kick in things like autoimmune issues, adrenal fatigue, or all these various different medical issues to slow us the down because we won't do it on our own. So the body's like, slow down. And it pushes you to stop. We also have to look at some of the societal reasons why those things are in place. If we look at like the 40-hour work week, for example, that's an incredibly outdated process for us as humans because that was predicated on the notion that there was somebody available at home to take care of all of the domestic labor. But unless you have an extreme amount of privilege in at least in the US, you have to have two incomes in order to survive economically. So that means that people are working 40 hours plus adding a ton of domestic labor. And again, that's disproportionate to women for many households. Not to mention invisible labor, the things that you know the size of your kid's shoes that your partner might not be aware that it's time for new shoes. All of that stuff creates this we are in this place of threat. I can't forget that. Sign that permission slip. Get them over here. Get that food. They're allergic to peanuts. We make sure the Halloween candies are blah, blah, right? All of that stuff is keeping us in a prolonged place of sympathetic nervous system. So then when we do have a day off, and tell me if this sounds familiar, Deanna, you do have a day off, you can't sit still. You can't
A day
relax.
off. What's a day off?
What is that? You go on vacation and the
Oh,
first
God.
first 3 days of vacation, you're just organizing the hotel room because your body's is it safe to rest? Is it safe to come down from this hyper vigilance? And in our day in, day out life, it's not, because I might drop a ball. And so that's become the new threat. It's not the mountain lion or the neighboring tribe. It is, I might drop a ball. And that registers to our brain and our nervous system as I need to be on at all times. And then we add additional stressors like social media about constant
Mhm.
comparison or perfectionism. So, yeah, the cards are stacked against us, but this is why I think these conversations are so important, because there's a lot of women running around believing that they're uniquely broken. Oh, well, Deanna can do it.
Mm.
Oh, Amy can do it. Oh, so and so.
Oh
There
gosh.
so unless we're talking openly about, y'all, there's a systems failure here. The
Yeah.
cards have been stacked against us. We need to disrupt those patterns. And one of the fiercest acts of rebellion, I think, against those systems is to say, I deserve rest. I am enough.
Mm.
I am worthy of play and recreation and lack of overwhelm. I want peace. I am deserving of those things. So it's all tied together.
Mm. Oh gosh, again, so much to unpack. This is so great. And I think one of the reasons I did want to, like, at the beginning, I'm sitting here this whole time thinking, oh gosh, here I am talking at the beginning about how I'm a hot mess today. And I'm thinking, oh, it's so embarrassing. And should I edit? How is this
No.
going to come off as a good episode? And blah, 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 blah. And yes, it needs to stand because I don't want people to think that I always have it together. I don't. I'm a human, right? This is how it is. Do I have some of my stuff together? Heck yes. Do I have all of it together? Oh, hell no. Not
No.
in a million years. But I think the one thing that does help me is thinking about it as a journey, as growing and becoming a better human, becoming a better mother. I call them my three P's: my person, partner, and parent. And I want to continually raise these things up within my own life and within my own self. And a moment of self reflection and a moment of thinking, like, how could I do that better? And like you said, having these conversations, it's really important to be able to learn. There's a new fourth one. And you know what? I was never the fighter. Well, I guess it depends on what it is. You get my daughter in there, Mama Bear comes out. So for sure, I can be a fighter at times. But generally, I'm not the fighter. Generally, I always thought maybe I was the freezer, which was
Mhm.
weird because I like to take a moment and think about it.
Yep.
Although I am passionate when it comes to things around my house, I do tend to snap off. But if I'm having a real stressful moment, see, again, I'm not perfect. So my husband would probably listen to this and go, You're not that." But I do think I'm the fawner when it
Mhm.
comes to especially my nuclear family growing up. So it's really interesting. This is why we have these conversations so we can learn more about ourselves
Yeah.
and know that we're not broken. We're
Mhm.
human. We're learning, right? We're trying
Yeah.
to become better people. So hopefully people will resonate with this and know that we're all just working. We're all just doing the best we can. And
Right.
as long as we're moving through and trying to be self-reflective and learn to take the space that we all deserve to have. And that doesn't mean, which, as you were saying, that doesn't mean we have to be aggressive. We have to be assertive. We have to be somebody that we're not internally. It just
Yeah.
means that we treat ourselves with the same respect that we treat others and know that we are as deserving as everyone else around us.
Absolutely. 100%. Well said.
Amazing. Okay, so I got it. All right, perfect. Well, Amy, tell people where they can find out more about you. I know people listening to this are going to want to follow up and learn more and reach out to you. So, where can they do that?
Sure. So my corner of the internet is amygreensmith.com. And I like to say that all of those names are spelled the basic way, nothing exciting, nothing fun. Just Amy Greensmith. But I've got tons of freebies over there. I ran a podcast for 11 years. And so I have a back catalog of, gosh, almost 550 episodes that you can peruse and search for. If you click on free sources on my site, you'll see that there is a free workbook that is a lot of these practical tools distilled down into 9 tangible action challenges that you can take, and also a free hypnosis process that you can go through. I promise you won't be clucking like a chicken or anything like that. But and then I, like any self-respecting Gen Xer, I hang out the most on Instagram. So you can find me under the handle Hey Amy Green Smith. I'm a voyeur on most other platforms, but you can find me under that handle pretty much anywhere. And yeah, come hang out and see if you vibe with the stuff that I share.
Awesome. I love it. All right. And then I love to end every episode with 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, what does clutter free mean to you?
I think this really has shown up for me the more anchored I have been in my self-worth and valuing who I am, is I have completely decluttered obligatory relationships. I don't have anything in my life as far as relationships or things to do that I don't like. Like, I don't go to things I don't wanna go to. I don't hang out with people I don't wanna hang out with. Like, I have decluttered all of that stuff. Everything that's on my calendar, with the exception of doing my taxes. Everything on my calendar is stuff that I actually want to do. And that is, gosh, yeah, how much more clutter-free can you get than that?
Oh, so interesting. It's one of the things I love about asking these questions because you always get something a little bit different. Like, I have people on this show with lots of different viewpoints. So I love what I get. And yeah, interesting. Decluttering the relationships and the expectations and obligations.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely one we need to hear. So fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, what's making you happy right now or in this season of your life?
Oh, girl, it is all things Halloween. My partner and I think this is a little bit of me working through religious trauma where I couldn't even be a rock star. I could only be like a cat or something for Halloween because a rock star was too secular and of the devil. So I feel like embracing Halloween has really healed my inner child. So my partner and I
Mm.
build huge elaborate sets, and we've got probably 6 or 7 animatronics that we put out in our yard, and we have staff that comes and is a part of our, it's called a home haunt if you do a haunt, but it's at your home. And yeah, so we're in our season of, do you even haunt, bro? Like that's where we're at. So I'm currently building an alien portal. That's the latest
Gosh.
scene, is a big alien scene. So that's bringing me a lot
Wow.
of joy.
Oh, that's super fun. Okay. Oh my gosh. We will have to talk offline about that. That's super fun. All right. And then number 3, what is a goal for you have for yourself this year?
To oh gosh, this year, we're getting close to the end of this year.
I know. Well, let's say calendar year. Not calendar year, but like the next
You're
12 months of your.
okay, cool, because I'm like, I'm just chilling, right? I just wanna get through Halloween. Through the next year, it would definitely be to get a book deal. So, I've
Ooh.
been in and out of a book proposal for 10 years, and now I've waited too damn long, so now my work has evolved so much that the book proposal isn't current enough anymore, so I need a complete revamp on that, but I would really like to get some representation and get that book sold in the new year.
Oh, well, I wish you the best with that. That's an awesome goal. So
Thank
good luck
you.
as you work through that. Very
Thank
cool.
you.
All right, Amy. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I know the listeners are really going to enjoy this one.
Oh, I hope so. Thanks for having me, Deanna.
Oh my goodness, I loved today's conversation. When we started out, I was having some serious tech difficulties and it was really stressing me out. I was running late and it was just so much. It really overwhelmed me right before this episode started. And now, Amy, of course, was lovely and she rolled with the punches. But what came out of this conversation, I think, was something that was really authentic and proved that we are imperfect and we are doing our best to show up as ourselves every single day. And I am working more on being seen. We talked about that in the episode, and taking up space as my authentic self. So, special thanks to Amy for her help on this journey. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the episode. What stuck out for you the most? Comment on this post on Instagram, or you can send me a DM. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free on the social channels, or come over to the Wannabe Minimalist family group on Facebook and share there with the community. There will be a discussion thread for this episode, and we would love to chat with you in the comments. And of course, you can also leave a review on Apple Podcast, a comment on Spotify, or a comment on YouTube. And don't forget to check out Amy's resources. You can find those in the show notes by heading over to wannabeclutterfree.com/231. Again, that's wannabeclutterfree.com/the number 231 to find out more about Amy. And as always, thank you so much to you for joining me today. With that, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you back here next week when I'm talking with Jill Sirianni from the Frugal Friends podcast. Until next time, take care, keep things simple, work on empowering your own voice, and say no in the areas that are simple right now, but that really don't light you up, and build up those muscles so that you get better, so that you can empower your own voice. Remember, I believe in you, and I know you can do anything you set your mind to. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.